following is a presentation of the GERE Radio Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's your boy Perez. You're listening to the Better Live Than Dead podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to Better Live Than Dead episode 144.
Number 144.
Peoples. Powered by Better Live Than Dead and the GERE Radio Network. You can hear this podcast on betterlivethandead.com, Apple Podcast, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you can listen to podcasts. I am Ryan Wolfe at Wolfe BLTD, joined on the IndyCar Media Hotline by two of your favorites. First off, Luis Perez at MRLG Perez.
What's up, peoples?
And also the head of GERE Network himself, John Cimino at the JC Money.
Hola, what's good, everybody?
Episode 144 today is an emergency cast. It is the Antonio Brown emergency cast. And I mention this, guys, because we have gone through kind of a roller coaster of emotion with Antonio Brown recently. And things really came to a head this morning. We'll get to that in just a moment. But to start off with how we've gotten here, guys, and then I'll get your thoughts on this. On March 13th, and this timeline put together by Paul Gutierrez of ESPN.com, March 13th, Antonio Brown is introduced in Oakland after being acquired from the Pittsburgh Steelers for a 3rd and 5th round pick, and he was given a 3-year, $30.125 million contract extension. May 28th, says he's impressing the team. Great, fantastic. July 25th, Brown shows up to camp in Napa, California with frostbite on the bottom of both feet due to a cryotherapy mishap earlier in the month. We thought that was the craziest thing.
Crazier.
The next day, he takes a hot air balloon ride over wine country to kick off training camp, but is later placed on the non-football injury list that day. July 28th, he's activated from that list, participates in a pre-practice walkthrough. July 30th, Brown participates in the first half of practice, putting on a show before leaving the field and leaving the facility early. He does not return for 2 weeks as he seeks treatment on his frostbitten feet and also protests the NFL banning his 10-year Schutt Air Advantage helmet for safety reasons. August 13th, he returns to Napa, saying it was good to hear the support from the team in his absence. August 15th, they put a show in pregame. They put a Brown and quarterback Derek Carr, put on a show in pregame warmups in Arizona, although Brown does not play. August 18th, in wake of losing his first grievance with the league to wear his preferred helmet, Brown takes off from Napa again and is fined $40,000 for his unexcused absence. Later told by the Raiders GM Mike Mayock, quote, "It's time to be all in or all out." The next day, Brown returns to Napa as the Raiders break camp and head to the team facility in Alameda. August 22nd, Brown and Carr put on another show in pregame warmups in Winnipeg, Canada, and asked Gruden if they can run one play against the Green Bay Packers. Gruden quickly declines, and then Brown skipped a mandatory pregame walkthrough. August 25th, Brown loses his second grievance to wear his old helmet, but agent Drew Rosenhaus insists the receiver will find a new helmet, get an endorsement deal, and play on. On September 4th, gets even crazier. Brown, who once Facebook Lived a post-game Steelers meeting with Coach Mike Tomlin, posts to Instagram the letter sent to him from Mike Mayock detailing his fines on August 18th for $40,000 and August 22nd for $13,950. Brown tags the Raiders in his response, which reads in part, quote, "When your own team want to hate." It says here, an agitated Brown who usually stretches on his own during team stretch skips that period entirely before emerging for individual drills, goes through them half-heartedly, taking some plays off, yells at a strength and conditioning coach, fires a football into a fence after catching a pass from Derek Carr and jogging into the end zone. Later, Brown reportedly gets into a confrontation with Mike Mayock on the practice field in the locker room. Brown tells two reporters he will speak on Thursday. Later, Brown announces he has reached a deal with Zenith to wear their helmet, posting, quote, "the most calculated move so far." September 5th, reports break the Raiders will suspend Brown for conduct detrimental to the team. That phrase right there is important. Remember that. Setting the stage, that phrase right there sets the stage for a potential battle over his guaranteed money and putting into question whether Brown will ever play for the Raiders. Mike Mayock said, quote, "Antonio Brown's not in the building today. He won't be practicing. I don't have any more information. You'll get it when I have it," essentially. September 6th, Brown is back in the Raiders building. He issued, quote, "an emotional apology at a team meeting on Friday morning," a source told ESPN. Gruden issued a statement later in the day saying in part, quote, "Antonio is back. We were excited about that, ready to move on, and that the plan was to have Brown in the lineup for Monday's season opener against the Denver Broncos." Late last night on September 6th, Antonio Brown posted a YouTube video featuring a phone call between Brown and Gruden, which was explicit. some curse words, pretty much telling him to get over it and let's play some effing football. Fine. September 7th, today, this morning, the Oakland Raiders officially fined Antonio Brown $215,000 for conduct detrimental to the team. Again, that term is very important. By fining Antonio Brown, the Oakland Raiders voided the $29.125 million worth of guaranteed money in his deal. Brown says there is, quote, no way he plays after losing his guarantees. He asks for his release via Instagram about 9 o'clock this morning. And as of 11:56 a.m. today, the Oakland Raiders have officially released Antonio Brown. He is a free agent. And I guess with that, guys, you have the floor. Let me know what you think.
John, go ahead. I'm going to let you go first, bro.
Well, I'm going to say flat out, this has been probably the worst season of Hard Knocks ever, followed by what should have been recorded for that said season of Hard Knocks. You know, I get it. Antonio Brown, honestly, this is a really weird one, guys. He finessed his way out of Pittsburgh. And the Raiders gave up a third and a fifth for him, and got signed him to an extension. So he got the money that he wanted, but then I don't know, it got really weird. And I was kind of back and forth on this story the past few days, where I was on Antonio Brown's side, but then I kind of saw the side of the management there, and then but then I was kind of in the middle, and I just have no freaking idea. Like, I don't know what the hell happened. Now, part of me thinks that either Antonio Brown is quite the worker in terms of being able to manipulate situations to get whatever he wants, and perhaps he didn't want Oakland in the first place. Oakland was just the only one that was, taking the bait, so to speak, with Pittsburgh. Maybe he didn't want Oakland in the first place. And it's very possible. Oakland is not necessarily desirable, though Las Vegas probably would have been very desirable next year. Maybe he didn't want that. But the way he kind of went about doing that, whether it was the helmet thing, whether it was, the cryogenic, thing on the bottom of his feet or whatever. I don't know. Those were all weird situations. But then, with Mike Mayock being kind of down there with the players, that's not really where the GM is supposed to be. So that was kind of an oddity, and it just seemed very weird. And I don't think that video that you had mentioned about Antonio Brown with phone call with John Gruden, I don't think that did Antonio Brown any favors.
Well, the other thing about that, John, sorry, is that afterwards everyone was saying that's a huge deal. That should get him in some hot water. And then apparently John Gruden just said, I liked it. It was good.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing is of course he liked it, because it doesn't make John Gruden look like a villain. It made John Gruden look like the good guy in all this. Like, dude, just stop the shit and play football. Right. You're one of my favorite guys. It wasn't Gruden, putting him down or anything like that. It was Gruden praising him and telling him he wants him on his team, basically. And Antonio Brown releasing that and speaking in the manner that he was speaking, and combined with acting the way that he's acting, I don't understand. I don't understand his logic behind this. If you did not want to be a Raider, that's one thing, and I get that. But to go to this extreme, and I thought it was extreme how he exited Pittsburgh, where, with the blonde mustache and Mr. Big Chest and all that stuff. And my podcast co-host, Brandon, on Listen In, it was like, it's all a show. He just wants out of Pittsburgh. Once he gets out of Pittsburgh, he's going to go back to being Antonio Brown, because prior to that, you didn't really have prior to the Facebook Live video, you didn't really have any issues with him. There wasn't really very many issues with him.
Brandon was wrong.
Well, yeah, well, he wasn't necessarily wrong about the whole timeline with what was happening here. When they were talking about suspending the Raiders, he was like, no, they're not going to suspend him. They're either going to play him or they're going to release him. And sure enough, they didn't.
Going back to being normal.
What's that?
He was wrong about him going back to being normal.
Well, yeah, no. And that leads me to think that there's probably a little something more to this as far as he, the person, is concerned, and his own mental stability, whether it's depression or something else. So this is just a very, very, very weird situation all around.
You know what this is? I'm going to be 100% honest with you, in my opinion, this is a player who thinks he's bigger than the team, and if he acts like he does, he'll get what he wanted. He got out of Pittsburgh acting like an idiot, and he thought just by acting like an idiot again, he'd get the helmet he wanted back, he'd be able to manipulate the system, and the Raiders would count out to whatever he wanted. That's not what happened in this case. Antonio Brown was acting like a selfish individual who thought the money and his fame and his talent would get people to see things his way. First of all, I've never been in a cryo chamber, cryo, however you pronounce that.
Cryogenic.
Cold thing to get into, yeah, the cryogenic one. But I would imagine that if you're getting into something that cold, you should probably wear socks. Just throwing that out there. I've seen people come out of those chambers, and they normally have stuff on their feet. So I don't know why someone didn't stop him the first time from getting in there. So you start out with a really stupid injury, which, you know, whatever. It is what it is. We've seen worse, you know, like holding firecrackers in your hand. But, so that was kind of like, just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Like, why would you do that? And then everything else, just the whole circus that came with him was just annoying. Like, I was, you know, like John, you said you hem and hawed. Like, at one point you were on Antonio Brown's side, then you were on the Raiders side. I was never on Antonio's side. Everything he was doing was just selfish, ignorant, and a player that thought he was bigger than the game. I'm glad that the Raiders were like, you know what, man? Forget you. Tired of your nonsense. You want to be released? Goodbye. Adios. See you later.
I think for me, honestly, Louis, it was one of those things where you look at it and you think to yourself, this has been obviously, we know that Antonio Brown is cut from a different cloth in terms of a professional athlete. We know he's very good at what he does, and he knows he's very good at what he does. And the Steelers were able to work with him for 9 years. So if this was going on for the last 9 years, I mean, it's my thought process is always this. This isn't the first time we've seen this. This isn't the last time we'll see this. As a general manager, as a head coach, you're supposed to not only be able to work with these people, but your job is to manage egos. Because again, money, they say money changes people. And if that's the case, so what? But looking at it, I mean, you got to find a way to be able to manage a situation. And for me in Oakland, it certainly seems like Mike Mayock, if not John Gruden, are sitting here and essentially trying to I don't know if bullying is the right word, but they're trying to force their way onto everybody. And it doesn't seem like they want to manage an ego like Antonio Brown. It's essentially you're in or you're out, like I said before with Mike Mayock.
Well, I mean, look, to that point, it's their job. It's their job to do. They it's like Belichick in New England. He was given the keys, and he said, you know, Bob Kraft gave him the keys 20-something years ago and was like, do your thing. And he's done his thing, and he's done it quite well. And that's where the Patriot way developed. So Gruden's there for on paper with the Raiders organization for another 8 years.
I mean, I'm on Twitter. I'm on Twitter enough to see, you know, you see the sources, and it's all sources. They don't put their names on it, but there are football writers out there that was saying that during this whole process, they tweet the Steelers. They talk to the Steelers scouts and unnamed people, and all the Steelers people are saying the same thing. It's that the Raiders they totally whiffed on this because yes, you're going to have to give Antonio Brown some slack here, but you can't sit there and expect to bully him to follow your ways. Because again, I know you're on the team. That's what you're supposed to do. But at the end of the day, we know that doesn't always happen that way. So you have to find a way to manage the situation. And by just sitting there and napalming the entire thing, saying, we're just going to find the crap out of you so we can get out of this. It's like, you know, the Raiders are not a better football team without Antonio Brown on the field. That is for sure. And now at this point, they've essentially voided his contract and cut him with no guarantees, which that's something else I do want to point out here, you guys. Adam Schefter says Drew Rosenhaus mentions, now that Antonio's a free agent, they're focusing on the future, immediately looking forward to signing with a new team, looking forward to a new beginning. Says here, Albert Breer on Twitter, I'm told no decision has been made yet on Antonio Brown, whether to file a grievance against the Raiders and pursue his lost guarantees. Mike Tannenbaum, who was the ex-Jets and Dolphins front office guy, says that his $29,125,000 in guarantees over the next 2 years will be determined by an arbitrator. If the union files an expedited grievance, the hearing can happen within a week. He also goes on to say, if AB wins his grievance against the Raiders, he would count for a whopping $50 million in dead cap money for 2 teams. Oakland would be at $29,125 and Pittsburgh's already at $21,120. And then Tom Pelissaro on Twitter says that there's over the possible grievance, Rosenhaus won't speak to the legal situation, but says, quote, we'll do what's best for Antonio. We'll speak to the PA and then do what's best for him. So the Raiders definitely got themselves in a very, very bad position here. I mean, granted, Antonio Brown and the Raiders were taking turns raking each other over the coals and trying to, I guess, trash one another to make themselves look better. At the end of the day, I think for all parties involved, Antonio Brown not playing for the Raiders is probably the best scenario. But this isn't, like I said, the first time we've seen this. This won't be the last time. I don't think it changes much about Antonio Brown. We knew he has a very strong personality. He believes in himself very much. And for me, honestly, at this point, before he was suspended or fined, I should say, I'm sorry, for conduct detrimental, I was, I'm like, hey, Raiders, whatever. They're definitely doing the right thing here. But then once they suspended him, they tried to suspend him, ended up fining him for conduct detrimental to the team and clearing out those guarantees. At that point, when he says, if you're not going to pay me guaranteed money, cut me. Because again, at the end of the day, what's the one continual thing we've seen with Antonio Brown? He cares about his long-term health over anything, which is smart. But I mean, we saw it with the saga with the helmets. He wanted to wear the same helmet because he felt comfortable with it. Whatever. I mean, he did have a year plus.
You could say he cares about his long-term health, but has that already been jeopardized? Because I would presume so. Just the pattern, just his behavior, and taking away nothing from what he does on the field and how football smart he is. Listening to him speak. He doesn't sound. He sounds like that hit from his now former teammate Vontae Burzett or whatever his damn name is. Did more damage than meets the eye. Like I
would presume so, but I'm not. I wouldn't. I mean, that's the one thing for me that I feel quite uncomfortable with. That everyone on Twitter is immediately going, "Oh, well, he must have CTE. He must have a brain injury or something."
No, it doesn't necessarily have to be CTE. It doesn't necessarily have to be a brain injury. It could be something like depression.
Well, this is just what I'm seeing on Twitter. Like I'm saying.
Yeah, well, you know what? With all due respect, fuck Twitter. Seriously, when it comes to things like that, for F Twitter. Pardon my French there. I know I already dropped a couple swears, but F Twitter when it comes to that, because if it's a legitimate thing like depression, and I battle depression, and I'm very, very, very open about that. And I battle it, and that to me, when I saw that little, whatever, I don't know if it's a Nike ad or it was just an Antonio Brown ad that was made to look like a Nike ad. I don't know what I saw there triggered the, that sounds like a guy that's depressed. He's
definitely going through
definitely reaching for the attention or something, like he's not getting whatever he needed. So, and truthfully, I hope to the universe that is not the case.
And just looking on Twitter here, as you say, F Twitter. Sorry, Lewis, I'll let you jump in here in just a second. I just want to point out, Mike Freeman tweets out, Raiders players added, Brown was well liked in the locker room, but the situation became too extreme even for the people who liked him to have him stick around in Oakland. So again, it was a scenario where once he said once his guaranteed cash was gone, there's no point for him to put his health in the line for a week-to-week contract, a week-to-week game check, because he can go out in game one and blow up his knee and be done for his career, and the only thing he'll get is a game check. That's it.
Ryan, you think the Raiders were being bullies at certain points? I just don't agree with you. I think he had a contract. You had guaranteed money. There was stuff built into the contract that if you got fined, obviously they pulled the guaranteed money. and you blew up at the general manager. You had
Lewis. We've seen this before so many times, though. We see it. Like, I know there's a contract, I know there's guarantees, whatever it may be, but this is not the first time we've seen this happen. I mean, we've seen players refuse to show up. We've seen players refuse to play. We've seen players ask for trades, ask to be cut. This is nothing out of the ordinary. If anything, this is very normal for us to see. It's just not often that we see. It's not often that we see it play out this publicly.
Yeah. No. We see this stuff, but there's so much built into this. There's a ton more than we normally see built into it. You don't normally see the players calling the teams out on Instagram or social media.
It's the day and age that we're in, man.
So I know it's the age that we're in.
If you think back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, if we had Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, that we wouldn't have more stories like this.
I don't think so.
I'm sure we would.
I don't think we would. I don't think we would have. I don't know. It's hard to say because it's general. I'm just saying,
a different generation. With the amount of access we have to players now, stuff like this happens all the time. I mean, it's not as public. Essentially, what my thought is this was a giant pissing match. Once Antonio Brown realized, I don't want to play here, whenever that time was, maybe we'll find out, maybe we will never will. But at some point in time, Antonio Brown had a conscious thought and a conscious decision that I'm not going to play for the Oakland Raiders. How do I get out of here? Or how can I win this pissing match? So what the Raiders do is the Raiders do what's contractually allowed. They have to start finding themselves a way to get out of that contract by finding him and finally getting to the point where they can say, so now if they have to go to arbitration, they can say, look, there clearly is a history of, in the past, 4 or 5 months, there's a clear history here of him being fined. So this fine is definitely by no means out of the ordinary, right? So now they fine him for conduct detrimental, which then voids that guarantee in the contract, which at that point, he's essentially on a week-to-week contract. So at that point, that's how they can cut him with no problem. And then Antonio Brown, on his end, is going, okay, I'm going to win this. I'm going to get out of here. So what does he do? He continues to go out and show up at camp and leave camp. The cryotherapy thing, that was a total mess up. That is what it is. It's unfortunate. It's kind of funny, whatever it may be. But the helmet thing, I think, was the start of it. That was clear to me. Maybe he just doesn't want to be here, and this is his way to get out. And then clearly, as we saw, as he came back and started bumping heads with the general manager, and then getting fined, and then putting stuff on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, whatever it may be. It's just been a gigantic pissing match, honestly, and it looks like both sides may have won this one because, I mean, the Raiders, they are losers for not having Antonio Brown. They're definitely a lesser offensive team without him, but they don't have to worry about him anymore, and they don't have to worry about his guaranteed money right now, and Antonio Brown can go do whatever he wants in the National Football League.
Oh, yeah, they're definitely going to be a worse team without him. They were a great team with him, and they're definitely going to be a worse team without him. I'm just saying I have no issue with what the Raiders did. I'd cut them too.
I don't disagree with Lewis, and it's just better all around. I just wish that it was handled a little bit better. Yeah, John, I think that this could have played out. This could have played out a lot differently if it were handled better. I think if Mike Mayock didn't go for the throat, this probably would play out with Antonio Brown lining that up as wide receiver 1 on Monday Night Football. But Mike Mayock, I think, again, because it's one of those situations where we see what kind of ship, as we saw in Hard Knocks, what kind of ship they're running in Oakland. They've got a very so who else runs it and knows it is Damian Woody. He just tweeted out Gruden traded away Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper and traded for Antonio Brown, and then has a gif of Chris Tucker from Friday just putting his hand over his face. Exactly. It gets to the point where they want their guys, and if you're not going to buy in, they'll find a way to get rid of you. And they found a way to get rid of Antonio Brown once they realized he wasn't going to buy in. I don't necessarily think Mike Mayock by any means is a great GM because, again, at this point in time, he really was just a glorified scout who was really good on the NFL Network. But they're building again. I've always said this. He wasn't good on the NFL Network. Get the hell out of here. I couldn't stand Mike Mayock when he was on the NFL Network. I couldn't stand him listening to him on Notre Dame games every freaking Sunday. He's a tool.
Here's your thing. That's what it is right there. It's the Notre Dame angle. I know it.
He's a tool. He's a tool, Ryan. He's a
good
tool.
enough, John. He's good enough to get hired by an NFL team as a general manager.
He's good enough to get hired by John Gruden, who hadn't coached in 10 years, and he got hired to an organization that fired him 10 years before that, and it's been in disarray ever since. Like, you don't know. No, if this were the Patriots, I would say, okay, Ryan, but it's the Oakland freaking Raiders. And regardless of the side of the fence, they have been a slap show of boneheadedness that has only been surpassed by Cleveland.
Well, hey, speaking of the New England Patriots, I want to ask you guys what's I want to ask you guys
before you do that. Can I report on good guy wide receiver news?
Sure.
Julio Jones reached an agreement on a 3-year, $66 million extension with the Falcons. Julio Jones, great guy.
Which is what the Falcons should have done. Tyler Dunn of Bleacher Report, he points out, he says he asked an AFC scout now what the market will be for Antonio Brown. One word, Patriots. Do you guys think, because at this point, Antonio Brown probably will have to sign a 1-year deal, maybe for the league minimum. Maybe he'll have to go out and it might end up being a deal where it's like, hey, we're guaranteeing you $750,000 or whatever, and it'll be up to $6, $7, $8, $9, $10 million, depending on all of these predetermined contract language, whatever it may be. Where do you guys think Antonio Brown ends up? Because obviously there's no way he's not going to play, but we just have to see where he'll end up.
We have a couple teams in the NFL that have a history of signing individuals like this. The Dallas Cowboys and the New England Patriots. I can't see Jerry Jones putting up with this crap, and we all know that Garrett's not going to be able to manage Antonio Brown.
Jerry Jones did put up with Terrell Owens, though, in defense. Jerry Jones did put up with Terrell Owens after the Philly fiasco. He did, but T.O., I mean, yeah, no, you got a point there. But he also signed Greg Hardy after Greg Hardy allegedly slapped his girlfriend.
That's true. That's what I'm saying. They have a history of signing players like this. I just don't know if you thought Gruden was terrible with AB. Jason Garrett is not even as good a coach as Gruden is, and Gruden's been away from the game. And,
hey guys, what happened? What happened the last time a disgruntled wide receiver was traded to the Oakland Raiders? What happened there?
Randy Moss. He got cut and he went to the Patriots.
Yep.
So I'm looking right here. I want to let you guys know. Sorry, Lewis. I want to let you guys know really quick. Edwarder says on Twitter, don't expect Antonio Brown to Dallas, which again, we just talked about that.
So here's the scenario I want to put out.
I just want to mention really quick. It's about Antonio Brown's contract with the Raiders that has been since terminated. Mike Tannenbaum points out as well, the organization can't quote well, first off, it says here, the Raiders told Brown that he would, quote, no longer be entitled to termination pay should he be released. And Mike Tannenbaum points out that the organization, quote, can't unilaterally take away a player's right to termination pay, which is a collectively bargained perk for veteran players. On the flip side, the Raiders could pursue a, quote, conduct detrimental claim, which is, again, the wording that I kept pointing out there, to recoup the money. But that's where things get a little tricky, according to ProFootballRumors.com, because the organization would then be dependent on the ruling of an arbitrator. If Brown's behavior isn't deemed to be detrimental, the Raiders would then have sacrificed more than $30 million and a pair of draft picks for literally nothing.
Nothing. No doubt. So anyway, back to what I was saying. I can see him going to the Patriots. Bill Belichick he has a way to keep people in check. And frankly, I don't want to see him on the Patriots because Tom Brady to AB would just be disgusting. And I really don't want
at this point, you have to think about it. With Drew Rosenhaus being his agent, now they have to go out and they essentially have to go rehab his image, and they have to put him in the best situation possible. So looking at the upper half of the league, first off, I don't think – I mean, he's not going back to Pittsburgh. Excuse me.
No.
I see John just tagged me in a tweet from Spot Track. Spot Track says potential Antonio Brown destinations from a football need standpoint: Seattle. Maybe he ends up in Seattle. New England, possible. The Giants, I can't see it. Green Bay, potentially. Buffalo, again, Buffalo tried to trade for him, but he didn't want to come to Buffalo. So at this point, you have to put yourself in the best situation to not only win, but to be productive enough. Because again, you're probably not going to get a long-term deal.
Can I just give everybody a hypothetical, or
John,
a what if?
Can I give you a hypothetical? I just saw a funny tweet, and I think you'll like it.
Okay.
I'm at Seahawks Scout on Twitter. Do you understand how badly Seattle needs wide receiver help? Antonio Brown would make the Dragons a juggernaut from the get-go.
Yes. My beloved Seattle Dragons. They're filling the void that the San Diego Fleet left. Lewis, you want to hop on that train with me? Come on, man. All right, so here's my hypothetical though. What if in an attempt to repair his image and show that he is indeed a team player, but also as a way to say F you to Pittsburgh, what if he takes the minimum, if able to, and signs with Cleveland?
That would be unreal.
Can you imagine? Now, I positioned that to Brandon, and of course, Captain Buzzkill was like, well, no, it's probably not going to happen because he knows he's not going to be the number one. I
Doesn't
get
matter.
that, but in a situation like that, where all of this, hypothetically speaking, work with me. I was a pro wrestler in a previous life, people. Work with me here. Storylines. Can you imagine the unbelievable amount of attention if Antonio Brown were to say, you know what? I know I'm not going to be the number one here, but this gives me the best chance to win, and I'm going to be a good teammate. And he signs with the Cleveland Browns for the veteran minimum, and he's lining up with Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham Jr. like Baker Mayfield would probably reach the point of orgasm before the game begins.
I mean, you'd have Antonio Brown on one side, you'd have OBJ on the other side, and then the slot would be Jarvis Landry. That would be unreal.
And you would have Kareem Hunt in the backfield.
Kareem Hunt's an asshole.
That would be stupid.
Well, Lewis, Ryan earmuffs, because I know you didn't like this joke when I threw it out last time, but Kareem Hunt is probably
stupid good.
No, Kareem Hunt is the best kicker on that team.
That's true. He is, absolutely.
That's I guess I know Ryan, know my audience, but come on. Those that know that I'm on here know that I joke with dark humor.
Hey, real quick, just to point out real fast.
He's no-sold it, Lou. He just no-sold it.
No selling.
He probably is better than Jamie Gillen.
Mine, damn it, you guys.
Listen, we were good for you last time, Ryan. You can't expect us to be good and not at least have to try and bring us down, Mean Gene.
I've lost control of the podcast.
There we go. We have to at least have that. You know what? That's the thing is like, here's shut up, Ryan needs to happen in every podcast. And Ryan saying, I've lost control of the podcast has to happen in every podcast when Lewis and I are together.
Just looking at this, I did pull this information here on NFL.com. Minimum salaries based on credited seasons, 7 to 9 credited seasons, $930,000. So there's that. I would suspect that Antonio Brown would sign for more than that. But here's the other thing too that I just thought about is that if Antonio Brown signs after week 1, which it will happen, all those contracts are non-guaranteed. So that'll also be interesting unless again they figure something out and agree to some sort of, I don't know, situation. But looking here, if you mentioned the Cleveland Browns have $32.79 million in estimated cap space right now. And the New England Patriots, scrolling down to them right now, the New England Patriots have $11.086 million in available cap right now as well. So both teams that we're speaking of right now have the available space to potentially go out and sign Antonio Brown. But again, this is going to be
using my Madden strategy here. If indeed he wanted something short term, a 1-year deal in order to try and get a max somewhere else, Cleveland would be the one that would be able to offer him more on a 1-year deal with that cap space. New England would probably have to try and extend it to 2 years or something like that. If my Maddenology serves me correct.
So would if, let's say, hypothetically speaking, he does become Cleveland Browns' new kicker, would that make them an automatic Super Bowl contender?
Yeah, and you mean wide receiver?
Yes.
Kareem Hunt's the kicker.
Receiver. Yes, that's true. I know.
Would it make them a Super Bowl contender? I think that would, for me, I think that would really depend on Coach Freddie Kitchens there. Like, I don't know. He's a rookie coach this year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. But I mean, just that wide receiver core is just ridiculous.
Hey, pointing out real quick, something Adam Schefter says here, a text from an NFL executive. As we've seen with the contract in the National Football League, things have been trending more towards the player, less towards the team, which is good. That's kind of what we want to see here. A text from an NFL executive said the extension for Julio Jones is, quote, the first legitimate step to being NBA contracts. Julio might actually be the tipping point for the NFL to follow the NBA. It's a bad deal for the team, good deal for the player. So that's awesome, because for the longest time we've seen teams kind of skimping players on cash, despite the fact that they're making buco bucks. Now, I've got a funny tweet for you guys from Spot Track. Get this. Now, obviously, it'll probably end up being, fast forward a few months, best is just to clear it out and say, you get nothing, both sides, you're divorced, move on with your life. But Spot Track points out, Antonio Brown's release will temporarily leave a $1 million dead cap hit, $333,000 in 2019, but the Raiders will be credited that back in 2020 since the workout-based bonus was never paid out. Antonio Brown currently leaves Oakland having earned negative $269,023 as a Raider. So that being said, Antonio Brown had to pay $269,023 to be an Oakland Raider.
I hope it was worth it for him. Because when he raises up a Lombardi trophy as a member of the New England Patriots, it's going to be, I'm sure it will be. I don't know. I really think that he's going there. And I hate that as a Jets fan. We've
got future Hall of Famer Patrick Mahomes. That's
right. Oh my God, Ryan, you got it right. Thank you.
Well, here's the thing. Hear me out. We'll always refer to Patrick Mahomes as future Hall of Famer Patrick Mahomes. We will now refer to Antonio Brown as future New England Patriot Antonio Brown, even if he signs with whomever it may be. We'll always mention him as the future New England Patriot Antonio Brown.
Shut up, Brian.
Thanks. Hey, with that being said, it sounds like my wife just dropped something upstairs, so maybe I should end the podcast here.
Oh, yes.
I think the vacuum cleaner just fell over, but it didn't sound good.
Oh, all right. Well, yeah, you definitely don't want that kind of negativity in your life.
I didn't hear an fuck. So I think she's okay.
Do you hear any screaming? There's no screaming. Everything is fine.
No, I didn't hear fuck, so I think we're okay.
Okay.
But hey, football starts. The first game, one of 256, started on Thursday night. The rest of the season begins on Sunday. Enjoy football, guys. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm hoping that the Bills-Jets game is a little more attention grabbing than the Packers-Bears game was, because that was a very terrible game.
I mean, that just shows you how good the Bears defense. I think that shows you how good the Bears defense is and how bad the Bears offense is. Just in a nutshell.
This is true.
It's got to be really embarrassing. This is my last thought for the podcast here for you guys. It's got to suck really bad, and I think the Bills could potentially be heading in this direction if Josh Allen continues to not develop as a quarterback. It's only year 2, though. I'll calm down. It would suck to be a Bears fan and to see you have so many options on offense and such a great defense, but your quarterback is Mitchell Trubisky.
Oh, that would be terrible. It would almost be like the New York Jets of 2009 and 2010.
Yeah, where you just have a black hole. You have a wet fart as a quarterback.
We had the New York Jets made it to 2 AFC championship games in consecutive years with a bumbling idiot as a head coach and clueless Mark Sanchez behind there. Like I honestly believe if if Brett Favre would have come back that one year, not if they would have not traded him to Minnesota and he would have come back, the Jets very likely would have gone to the Super Bowl that year, that first year. But they got there with Mark Sanchez those 2 years, and then after that it's been now 7, almost 8 years, maybe even longer of not being in the playoffs since then because of those additions and everything. So yeah, that you're absolutely right.
Hey guys, an ESPN writer says that the Patriots would never take on Antonio Brown. They've built a dynasty based on culture and smart personnel moves. Antonio Brown checks neither box. Someone then responded and pointed out that the Patriots employed a serial killer.
Not only that, but from a wide receiver standpoint, Jesus Christ, from a wide receiver standpoint, I had to think about that for a minute. Very good. But they took, Randy Moss hit those check boxes when he was signed there, and neither did Chad Johnson. And Chad Johnson played there one season, and I believe it was a Super Bowl season that didn't win, but they at least got there. So the Pats do take chances on them, and usually more often than not, very much like Magic Johnson, they have very positive outlooks on people.
Patrick Monahan on Twitter at Patty Mo points out too. I'll let Lewis laugh so he can hear this one. Patrick Monahan at Patty Mo on Twitter says, as a not really NFL fan, this Antonio Brown stuff is like Brexit to me. That's pretty funny.
Not nearly as funny as my Magic Johnson joke I just made. Sorry, Ryan.
Yeah, the Magic Johnson one trumped that one.
Thanks.
My favorite part of Thursday's game. Well, hold on a second. My favorite part of Thursday night's game, by the way, was that Aaron Rodgers got rid of that stupid-ass mustache.
Oh, come on. That mustache is great.
I kind of like the mustache. I thought it was pretty great.
It's so terrible.
The Hall of Fame mustache right there.
That is. Definitely.
Well, hey.
Danica liked it.
Yikes.
Well, hey now.
Okay, Ryan, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, that being said, Lewis is at MRLG Perez, John at the JC Money. Excuse me, I am Ryan Wolfe at Wolfe BLTD. We appreciate you joining the podcast. And as always, we are better live than dead.
You're not.
We will catch you all sometime very soon.
Shut up, Ryan, and safe home to his vacuum cleaner. The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the GERE Network. Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Do you like sports, interactive polls, friendly banter from two guys that probably shouldn't even be on the microphone doing this stuff anyways? Well, if you do, then you're in luck. Us two knuckleheads, Brandon and myself, comprise the Listen In Podcast. That's right, Listen In, the podcast. We're talking sports, we're talking news, we're talking topical things, we're talking all sorts of things, my babies, and you are all invited to listen in right here on the GERE Radio Network.